NBC News reporting on something totally inconsequential that has nothing to do with humanity's well-being. We're not going to talk about climate. You're going to have to go somewhere else for that one.
Back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Back to our regularly scheduled inconsequential programming. Gathered here because network news, broadcast news, all the major networks, they don't cover climate. You know, there's been like so little coverage of climate. It's the most pressing issue of our times. Why is nobody talking about it on TV news, which is still how the majority of Americans get their news? It doesn't make any sense. They don't think that there's any money in it, but the problem is it's a threat to our very survival. So I think they should probably be talking about it.
We are here to make it clear. Do your job. Do your job. NBC, we are here to make it clear. Do your job. Do your job.
Rather spend time talking about Jeff Bezos going up to space, polluting. They'd rather talk about, Will Smith slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars. But they have not covered the climate crisis for the emergency that it is. Media Matters released a report.
Blah blah. Blah blah blah. Blah blah. Slap. Blah blah blah. Blah blah blah. Slap.
What do we want? Climate coverage. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Climate coverage. When do we want it? Now. If we don't get it, shut it down. If we don't get it, shut it down. If we don't get it, shut it down. Woo! We don't want to listen about solutions about plastic straws. We don't want to listen about solutions about recycling. They need to be educating the public for the severity of the situation that we are in. They need to be declaring a climate emergency and reporting it for what it is and hold the government to account. We need them to divest from that fossil fuel interest. We need them to drop fossil fuel advertising. We need them to actually divest their pension investments from fossil fuels. We need them to tell the public about how little time that we have left and what we need to be doing, and that we actually need system change. Otherwise, we cannot solve the climate crisis. And we need them to be talking about the injustice and how the global south, people all over the world are actually suffering today. So, everybody, make some noise. If you mean this, if you want to tell NBC that you mean business, wrong. Make some noise. Woo!
And we cannot be silent. The climate is in crisis. and we cannot be silent. The climate is in crisis, and we cannot be silent. The climate is in crisis, and we cannot be silent. The planet is in crisis, so we will not be silent. The planet is in crisis, so we will not be silent. The planet is in crisis, so we will not be silent. The planet is in crisis, so we will not be silent. We will not be silent. The planet is in crisis, so we will not be silent. The planet is in crisis, so we will not be silent. The climate is in crisis, so we will not be silent. The planet is in crisis, so
Give the planet what it needs. Eating up and the green. Like COP26 happening. It is something that you cover every single day with in-depth quality stories that talk about the effects of climate change, that talk about the causes, that talk about how we need to end the era of fossil fuels now. And we tell them at such a high quantity. Why? Because climate change is the biggest threat facing our whole world right now. We just came from NBC, Disney, who was ABC's parent company. That's who we're up against, and yet we're still fighting. And I am so happy and proud to see all of you here today in agreement with the idea that we think this is bullshit and they need to cover climate like it is the biggest story of our times, because it is.
What do we want? Climate coverage. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Climate coverage. When do we want it? Now.
Saying the words climate change is not enough. You have to make the link between climate change and extreme weather. You have to make the link between climate change and poverty. You have to make the link between climate change and health, physical and emotional health, because violence goes up in this city and every city when it gets hotter. There are more murders, there is more death. Make the link between climate change and health. You have to make the link between climate and every story, because climate is the story. You have to label the climate as an emergency. Is it an emergency? Yes! Label it with urgency and talk about it and say that it's caused by humans and caused by fossil fuel companies.
Yes! What do we want? Climate coverage! When do we want